Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cindy Teasdale, Executive Director of Prepare.ai, a St. Louis-based nonprofit whose mission is to increase awareness of, access to, and collaboration around AI and other fourth industrial revolution technologies in order to advance the human experience. Today is a departure from our normal programming. While we typically focus on the people and technologies that are shaping our collective future, today we're taking some time to discuss the critical issue of creating more opportunity and equity in the technology industry. In 1985, 37% of students graduating with bachelor's degrees in computer science were women. Last year, that rate was 21%. While Latinx and people of color represent 28% of today's workforce, they only make up 14% of the technology workforce. And at the very same time, nearly 1 million tech jobs went unfilled in the US last year, and the gap could grow to 6 million by 2030 if left unchecked. So how did we get here? And how do we move forward together? Welcome to Prepare's first ever Workforce Development Forum, presented in partnership with Daugherty Business Solutions, a phenomenal committee of volunteers, and the support of all of our sponsors. And now to our first panel, Are You Prepared for the Tech Economy of 2025? Moderated by Shawn VanDerziel, Executive Director of the National Association of Colleges and Employers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prepare.ai's Workforce Development Forum and our session on broadening the tech talent pipeline. It's so great to be here with you today, and thanks for choosing to spend some time with us. We're really pleased to have you. I'm Shawn VanDerziel, Executive Director of the National Association of Colleges and Employers, otherwise known as NACE. NACE is a membership organization with over 13,000 members focused on the career development and employment of the college educated, particularly recent college graduates. And I'm coming to you today from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Pleased to be here. And in today's session, we're going to cover smart steps organizations are taking to broaden the tech talent pipeline. We're going to talk about the strategies organizations are implementing to attract a broader and more diverse workforce, and how we can help students and those looking for career changes think about the skills that are needed in today's workforce. We know that there were close to 1 million unfilled IT jobs in the US at the end of 2019, and that there's significant underrepresentation of people of color and women in the tech workforce. But we also know, even through COVID, that many companies are still hiring. And in research we've done, we know that some of the hottest areas are software engineering and the food and beverage manufacturing area. So there's talent need out there. And companies are also proving that they're really committed to increasing diversity of their staff and are making anti-racism commitments. But we also know that, for example, students of color are underrepresented in areas such as internships. So that pipeline definitely needs some developing. I'm joined today with 3 incredible panelists who are going to help us to explore all of those questions and issues I just covered, and they're going to share their expertise as well as their stories, and I'm so excited to introduce you to them. And I think a way for us to start is for us to have each of them introduce themselves so you can hear from them directly. And I'd love for each of our panelists to let our audience know who you are, what organization you work for, what your role is, and please give us a short description of your company or college. That would be much appreciated. So why don't we start with Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Munsell. I'm the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency's Chief Technology Officer. Don't think I have to rehearse that every once in a while to make sure I say it right. It's a mouthful. My role at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency is mostly sort of forming up the agency's technology strategy. And that includes everything from the sort of tools, tech stack, cloud migration, the adoption of different incoming technologies, but as well as equipping the agency's workforce so that they have the tools that they need, they have the training that they need, and that we're hiring the right technologists coming in. So, NGA's IT enterprise is a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise. And of course, everyone from the president to the warfighter relies on our products and services. So it's really important that we have a good technology strategy moving forward and that we hire the right people.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Jeff, would you introduce yourself?
Sure, Shawn, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Jeff Pittman. I'm Chancellor of St. Louis Community College. I'm in St. Louis today. St. Louis Community College is the largest college in Missouri, the largest community college, and it's the largest college or university in the St. Louis region. We offer a wide variety of degree programs for workforce or for transfer. We serve about 50,000 students in our credit and non-credit students each and every year. We have close to a total of 90 programs, probably around 80 that are career focused, and certainly within the IT realm. So very, very excited to be here today and to get this opportunity.
Excellent. And Naomi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi, Wheeless, and I am the Global Head of Customer Success for Square. That's just really a fancy way of saying that I oversee all of the customer-facing operations for the organization. For those of you who may not be already familiar, Square is an organization centered around helping businesses start, run, and grow their organization. So we offer payment processing services, marketing services, directory services, appointments. We have software for retail and restaurants as well to take use of. And then we have a whole slew of really elegant hardware that will help you take payments from your consumers. We're a global organization located in a number of different countries. And my job leading up the customer success part of it is to make sure that our sellers, our customers, essentially have a really fantastic interaction with Square. So my team is the support team. I handle all the social media for the organization as well. I take care of analytics, a little bit of engineering. We've got workforce management, project management. It's one of the largest teams at the company, and we're really mission driven in our quest to make sure that our sellers have great experiences and have the tools and support they need to run really profitable businesses. Really happy to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all for those introductions. It's great to get to know you all just a little bit more before we jump into this. And what I'd like to do now is to run through a series of questions with each of you to kind of ground us all in what's happening with your companies and with the college and what you're hearing. And then towards the end, we will open it up to questions to our audience. And so if you do have questions that you think of as we go through, please feel free to ask those, and we will have a Q&A session in the last 10 minutes of the session today. So I'd love to start with you, Jeff, and just hear what students and faculty and the community are saying related to our labor market and the skills that are needed in this labor market.
All right, thanks, Shawn. And oftentimes you'll get different answers to that question among the different groups that you work with. I mean, obviously our students are interested in careers. Many students come to St. Louis Community College and the typical community college thinking about transfer, but we push a little harder with them in regard to thinking about career initially. There are just so many jobs available right now in high wage industries or sectors like IT that the students need to think maybe a little bit differently than beyond the traditional four-year track in regards to what the labor force is calling for right now. Our faculty, they primarily want to make sure that their programming, their curriculum is relevant and aligned with the workforce. So I often work with faculty. We work with our employers, particularly in the IT field, and I'll get into a little more detail that later on in the session, just to make sure what we're doing is spot on with what employers are needing. In regards to the community, we publish it's called the State of the St. Louis Workforce Report. We've done it for the past 12 years. We have some great research partners. It gives us really in the community direction in regards to what's going on to the workforce, what trends are happening, and what employer needs. And we, over the course of the past 12 years, we've seen a complete workforce cycle from the depths of the Great Recession through a decade of recovery and now the huge disruption of COVID-19. The report, just to give folks a little background, there's basically three sections. We look at a lot of empirical data about the St. Louis economy. We then survey about 1,200 employers. It's a phone survey, so we have a very, very high response rate, so it gives us good intel. Then we always do a narrative section or a qualitative section where we'll meet with specific groups. In 2019, of course, we did it last August. We had no idea that this pandemic was coming, but we focused on 3 groups that I think are relevant to the IT industry today. They were 18 to 24-year-old African-American men, justice involved people, and people with disabilities, all who had very high unemployment rates, unfortunately, despite a very booming economy at this point in time last April. What I did then, Shawn, I went back and I looked at the relevant findings that are relevant today from the report, because you can imagine we were in a boom economy, in a bull market. My goodness, everybody seemed to have a job. There were more job openings than there were people looking for work. So we're in a completely different predicament now. However, despite nationally close to a 10% unemployment rate, the huge need for IT workers today is just as relevant as it is right now as it was back in August 2019. So there's just a tremendous amount of vacancies and a tremendous amount of opportunities for young people, people of all ages. Something scary, and I certainly fit in this category, we have an aging workforce. Almost 25% of our workforce in the St. Louis region is over 55 years old. So, you know, we're not going to be working for a real long time, and I would assume that stands to be the case also in the IT arena. The number one barrier for expanding employment in the St. Louis region for the past 4 years has been a shortage of workers with knowledge or skills. And then on the shortcoming of applicants that employers told us, they talk a lot about really kind of the soft skills, poor work ethic, lack of interpersonal skills, lack of critical thinking and problem solving and teamwork are all critical in the IT industry. And this is somewhat telling, I think, and I think you're going to see a shift in what employers are going to require for their employees in terms of credentialing. The middle skills arena, that is those jobs that require an education beyond a high school diploma, but not necessarily a 4-year degree. Those jobs were the largest need for all of our area employers, of the 1,200 that we surveyed. So prior to the pandemic, companies in St. Louis were having an incredibly hard time in the IT industry to fill the jobs they have. And I know that's even compounded right now, given these restrictions many educational institutions have with the current pandemic. Some notable shifts, you know, I read and looked at the objectives for this session. Interestingly, in 2019, employers actually had somewhat reduced drug screening. They dropped to about, in 2015, about 40% of employers did drug screening for all their positions or 100% positions. That dropped to only 13% in 2019. Probably reflective maybe of the difficulty they were having in finding workers. Background checks did the opposite thing. Back in 2015, only 61% of the respondents required background checks. In 2019, 98% required them for all jobs. So background checks may correlate with the drug screening and somewhat, we're not sure. But one of the most dramatic things that we found this past year that shows the situation in finding qualified workers. For justice-involved individuals, in 2015, 26% of the employers said they would not consider hiring an applicant who'd been convicted of a felony who had completed his or her sentence in probation. Okay, so 26% in 2015. In 2019, that dropped to less than 1%. So we know, you know, there's just, for all the young people listening in this session, college students or high school students, these are great career opportunities for you that you need to think about, that employers are really, really looking for workers with talent and with skills in the IT industry. And that really concludes my synopsis of the report as it's relevant to today, Shawn.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Jeff, for sharing that. It really sets the stage for the employment landscape and what students are experiencing and the community is experiencing. I'd love to translate that now to what's happening with some of these employers and how they're reacting to some of those concepts. And so I'd like to start with Naomi. I know that Square has many offices, and you have a location there in St. Louis as well. Could you just talk to us in general about how your recruitment's going, and are you finding a skills gap, and perhaps is there a difference based upon region? What are you experiencing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think over the years, as Jeff was mentioning, there's been lots of articles written about how there are more tech jobs available than there are actually workers to fill. And I do think that's true in some regards, but I think also a lot of what companies and society has to do is to shift their mindset on who is the right available worker. Historically, tech jobs have most frequently gone to younger white males, mostly located in Silicon Valley. And that still is continuing to be the case, but what we're seeing is a lot of organizations just really figuring out how do they start to hire in other locations and to look at different demographics of people. And I think once you start to open your mind and widen who could be the ideal ideal candidate profile for some of these tech positions, it does help widen your applicant pool. So things like looking at race, looking at gender, and even age is a serious thing. Ageism is definitely a problem as well. And there are older workers that are still super sharp and have a lot of vitality and want to continue working and learning new trades. So I think as organizations start to shift their mentality about who they should be hiring, then they can start to figure out and focus on different ways to go after those new segments of applicant population, in developing programs, creating alliances with different community organizations to attract those type of candidates instead of continuing to focus on the younger white male population. So Square definitely has not seen that challenge. We do find the market to be quite competitive. Obviously, there's a lot of hiring going on in the tech space. And so we're competing, being an SF-based company with the Googles and the Amazons and the Apples of the world. But we have over 200 open roles right now, and we're filling them and we're hiring very aggressively. And even here in St. Louis, we've been able to hire a pretty decent sized engineering team that comes from people with all different levels. Some of them had lots and lots of years of engineering experience. Some were more junior in their education. We brought them on understanding we would need to pour into them and to develop them. So I think us taking the position where we're not always 100% of the time looking for that unicorn candidate that comes with all the skills and all the education already up front and willing to take solid talent and further development has also helped us be really successful in this particular space. But I think as far as to your question about are we seeing different challenges in various geographical locations, seems to be a little bit easier to hire engineers in some of the tech roles in some of the Asian markets. I'm not really quite sure why, but I have a team in Tokyo. I have a BPO team in Taiwan, and they seem to have a lot of those skill sets at the ready there. But I haven't found it necessarily challenging when we're hiring like in the UK or Australia or certainly here in the States. I think it's all about how you approach it and how wide you're willing to cast your net.
That was really helpful, Naomi, and I love how it ties in exactly what Jeff was talking about. There are, lots of ways to look at this talent pipeline and how to break down that talent. There's talent out there, right? And so it's a matter of being creative with it and thinking about what you're really looking for and tying in some of Jeff's sentiments around thinking about those problem-solving skills, those critical thinking skills, and that's what you're really looking for. So maybe taking some of those other requirements out of the way or other barriers that might sometimes be used as initial screening tools and focusing more on those competencies that someone can bring forward, and then growing those people as you suggested and tackling it from another angle. Thanks for sharing that. Mark, I would love to hear from your space. I understand that you've been looking at the roles in your organization and you've been thinking about modifications and how to grow that talent in the pipeline. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, our particular organization, being an intelligence agency, is mostly an analytic organization, right? So we take in information, all different kinds of sources of information, and the bulk of our workforce are analysts that analyze that information and make intelligence from it and inform, other customers, policymakers, military, what have you. And so that has traditionally been, you know, somebody with a degree in political science, degree in the sort of softer sciences, if you will, government, geography, and you know, the whole slew of types of degrees, and where they're very aware of geopolitics. They're very aware of the context of relationships, our relationship with other countries and what have you, and traditionally has not involved a lot of tech skills or data skills, computer science skills, even though our organization is almost 100% digital. And everything that we do is based on, you know, data and software. So, you know, in the last few years, we've really taken a shift, a pretty extreme pivot on both the analytic workforce and then the technical workforce that supports them. And we've actually started, you know, new specific deliberate initiatives to bolster the data workforce and the computer science workforce, with the idea that now as we hire political scientists or geographers, people that really do have a good understanding context of geopolitics, they have to have data skills. They have to have some kind of compute skills. If they haven't taken a Python course, if they haven't taken a SQL course, they're probably not going to be considered. Because like I said, everything that we do is digital. Everything that we work with is data and using software applications to manipulate it. So with that said, we started something called the Data Corps in NGA, and it's a specific initiative where we're hiring data scientists and data analysts. And while they have a particular expertise to find the data, sort of, you know, bring new insights from in these data pipelines, they're also out evangelizing in the analytic workforce, you know, the thousands of analysts, and teaching them how to fish by going through that. So that's really a change. And it's something that we've already seen great benefits from. The other thing that we've done is started something called the Dev Corps, which is, you know, traditionally big government agencies outsource our software development, you know, to big companies like Lockheed Martin or SAIC or Northrop Grumman. And while that is useful, you know, these companies typically are good at building airplanes and ships, and you know, we're building software. And so we realized that we should have more of that expertise, not completely outsource everything that the government does here, and hire software developers inside and internally to help lead and guide the way for the broader enterprise of outsourcing that we're going to do. And that's really also changed a lot of the approaches that the agencies take, and gotten the attention of a lot of other agencies on how to do that approach. It's been out of necessity. We're doing things like migrating to the cloud. You know, we're completely changing our IT infrastructure, and we can't do that, right? Completely solely relying on putting out a request for proposal on the contractor and hoping they sort of guess it right. We really have to have that expertise to be able to guide the way. So these are a couple of big changes that I think will really, you know, sort of set the course for the kinds of people that we hire. No longer are we going to hire sort of a pure soft science. You're going to have some kind of data or computer science skills.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so in some instances, you got to set the floor, right? And you got to know what the basics are that you got to have, and then you can grow people from there if they have those basics. Thank you. Naomi, you know, we start to talk about some skill gaps, and I'm just wondering, when you do find that there's a skills gap, how do you work through that, and how do you get to who you're looking for or what you need? Are you working intentionally with that talent to either reskill, upskill? How are you going about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Square is doing a lot in this particular area. We're constantly exploring new ways to find new hiring pipelines to make sure that we are kind of keeping our ear to the ground to understand what's available in the marketplace and what is the pool that we have to choose from. So we're doing things like having really strong presence at various conferences where we're going to find diverse talent like Afrotech or Grease Hopper. So sending some of our employees there to kind of really talk up Square, get people excited about what we're doing, think about us as a potential employer after they graduate, college or a place that they could come to do an internship with, because we do lots of those as well. So we definitely have a mindset where we are all about developing talent if it doesn't already exist. So our internship program that exists within some of our technical roles or engineering roles, it's a very healthy, strong, stable program that definitely often results in long-term career positions for some folks there. And then we also maintain really good, strong relationships with local organizations in the various communities that we serve to make sure that we're pouring into them and investing in them in a way that will help develop that talent that we're going to need many, many years down the line. So a great example of that would be the partnership that we have with Launch Code here in the St. Louis market that centers around helping develop people to get coding experience. And so if we are investing in that early on, we'll then be able to reap the benefits of that, later on as people are graduating through those various steps. And then we also have a really great internal mobility rate. So within Square, we've got a little over 5,000 employees, and they're not all, the majority actually probably are not in technical roles, but we've got really great programs that are built in place from a developmental standpoint to take the talent that we have to turn somebody who's in human resources who wants to move into a technical role into a person who can, because we've got mentorship programs where they can align and form a relationship with someone who is an engineer, or we have completely paid for subscriptions to LinkedIn Learning where they can start to gather those skills and get certifications in that way. We also have a stipend that every employee gets for their own personal development, where they can go out into the marketplace, figure out what are the new skills that they want to acquire, and utilize this stipend to help them develop those skills. So we have a very concerted effort to make sure that we are pouring into and investing in our internal team and helping them grow and develop new skills, even if it is in a brand new area of the business. And then also making sure that we are closely aligned with the community and doing things there to invest there to grow and mature talent over time.
Love that. Love the fact that you're investing in the community, but also investing in your own people. And of course, that's a much more efficient way to bring talent aboard that you need, is to grow the talent that you currently have. And so I applaud you for doing that. Jeff, would love to just hear from your perspective, from the higher education perspective, some of the things, and particularly in your circumstance there in St. Louis, some of the programs that bridge education to the world of work that you're seeing are really making an impact, making a difference.
Thanks, Shawn. Within the college, we have a department, it's called the Workforce Solutions Group. They develop a lot of short-term non-credit training that is getting a lot of interest and attention. At the same time, we offer one-year certificates, two-year associate degrees on the credit side. So we've been working with Workforce Solutions basically as our R&D group and trying to break down the barriers between credit and non-credit, because they're starting to become so related. One of the most, I thought about two examples for today in regards to IT, and then a couple other examples that IT companies may think about going forward in regard for those employers that may be at the conference today. But the first thing we did, we had what we call a tech review. We had all of our IT faculty meet with area employers to look at our curriculum. We ended up completely redesigning it. So really all of our IT curriculum now has been aligned much more closely with the workforce. Within that, we developed a lot of short-term certificates that are stackable. And I think a trend you're going to see in higher education, even if you're pursuing a liberal arts degree, even in a bachelor's level, you're going to see certificates that will become available in IT that you can align with your liberal arts program. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it helps students in particular get a jump start on careers. They can also start a career while they're in college, and there's nothing wrong with earning money or working while you're in college. So we're kind of rethinking in regards to how we offer our degree programs and breaking down those walls between more shorter term training. Naomi mentioned Launch Code. Launch Code is a great organization. We partner with them. So the second example is here that we offer a code camp program at our Harrison Education Center downtown. We partner with Launch Code and utilize their curriculum, but we basically took a whole different approach than Launch Code. We made it a full-time program. It's 14 weeks. We put a lot of student support mechanisms around it, including transportation, loaner laptops. We have IT coaches and faculty moving in and out of the class to assist the students. The program has been so successful. Our completion rate is around 90%, which we think is incredible. But the state of Missouri, and even we're getting some federal grants to continue this work. We do offer this at this time for free for individuals because we're trying to make this type of programming available because we know how important this is to the St. Louis region. A couple other examples I would love to talk with IT companies here in St. Louis in regards to things we're doing in other sectors. We have 2 biotech programs up at the Danforth Plant Science Center. They're embedded with industry. The industry actually uses a lot of our lab space because we have millions of dollars worth of equipment that grants have provided for us. And those startup companies in that center use our lab and equipment oftentimes. But the unique part of this program is that we have paid internships for our students who then work shoulder to shoulder with the industry startup leaders. And more times than not, I would say 90% of those interns become employees. So the startup companies are kind of gleaning the interns out of our program. And it also gives the interns the opportunity to earn a pretty good wage while they're going to college. One other example that I'll give that I think we could apply to IT, we have a pre-employment training program with Boeing. This is a free program that Boeing helps sponsor and pay for, but we provide 2 different programs, one for the defense and one for the commercial sides of the plant here in St. Louis. It's focused on both soft skills and technical skills. And in this model, if students successfully complete the course, they're guaranteed an interview with Boeing. And I think we placed almost 700 students now in this program. They start at $19 an hour for about 5 weeks of training. And they typically move on up. If they stay at Boeing a year, they get tuition reimbursement. And you know, it's just a great career within a big company like Boeing. We also have a very, very high placement rate in that program as well. So Shawn, I thought that might give you a little examples of what we're doing in IT and what we're doing in some other industries that could be adapted by employers here in St. Louis or across the country.
Thank you so much for that overview. Really helpful, particularly around being really intentional about what you're doing and what those outcomes are that you want, knowing that there's going to have to be an investment if we want to get where we're going, but then also that there are partnerships that are really key to filling that pipeline, and particularly that bridge between the educational system and the world of work. It's really important. Before we turn it over to questions, I do want to ask Mark around those partnership questions, because they're so vital to that talent pipeline. And if there are some things that I believe you're doing that have been successful, what are you finding?
Yeah, you saw me do that awkward flash on my t-shirt earlier. That was a launch code t-shirt, right? So give them a little plug along with everybody else. And I'll say, you know, for us, it's a mix. And I love the fact that we have, you know, Jeff sort of representing the colleges here and some of the creative programming that Square's doing. For us, it's a mix, and we're really looking for both of those things. We're looking for people that have a classic sort of traditional education with all the soft skills, people that have, you know, sort of well-rounded liberal arts kind of background, but with that applied technology. That it's really a mix of both those things. You're looking for that. I've hired some of the most brilliant technicians, IT people in my entire life that never finished their degree, because their skills were so valuable, so much more valuable than that degree. So that sounds awful when I say that, that their skills are so much more valuable that was the right trade to make at that time. I happen to encourage them to go finish their degrees later in life, and many of them have because well, of course, their mothers wanted them to, but also I wanted them to. But it's the sort of well-rounded education that they get. So we're really the programs that have both of those things. And I'll use Launch Code one more time as an example. A good example is a personal one that I have. My daughter is finishing up 101 right now. She has a master's degree in opera from Boston Conservatory. She's a brilliant musician. She lost her job in the beginning of COVID. You know, she was actually worked for a company that did audio branding for, you know, corporations to write music for them and stuff. And that was, you know, her dream job. She loved it, but it definitely slowed down when they couldn't go off and sort of make contact with these companies and do this. So she signed up for Launch Code and is wrapping it up right now. And it's been a brilliant experience. And so it's that she has a classical education, but now she's done this applied technical training. And I think it's the perfect mix moving forward. And it's exactly the kind of, you know, I even say, even a music, I shouldn't have said it like that. Also, music majors are super important to an agency like mine because they are so creative. They're coming at it from a different angle, but with that applied technical skill, they're the perfect combination of the kind of people that we're looking for.
Absolutely, and that really speaks to what Jeff was speaking about too, right? Which are around the certificate programs and combining those, even a liberal education with a technical aspect and how you marry those. And I think that's going to be critically important, particularly over the next year or so, as we see many industries are having a really rough time. They're going to continue to in this economy, but there are industries that are hiring that are potentially a little more technical. And so if individuals are creative, and are willing to move forward with programs like that, there are jobs in the marketplace, right? And if we have our minds open as employers to consider them, it's vitally important. So we're going to turn to some questions from our audience now. And the first question we have is around brain drain in the St. Louis region. And just wondering, and particularly brain drain of people of color. So potentially, you know, if you have these really bright minds and they're potentially leaving the area, are they leaving the area? Are they staying in St. Louis? What are those challenges that you're experiencing?
I can take a stab at that first.
Yeah.
We haven't at Square particularly seen a mass exodus of talent leaving the organization, regardless of race, quite frankly. But we are seeing people a lot more interested in the geographical dispersion that has become the norm now within teams. So people are becoming more and more interested in the thought of, maybe I can just move now because my job is remote. I've been remote for 9 months. A lot of companies, most organizations are becoming more warm to the idea. And so organizations they may have wanted to work at previously that were off limits to them because of relocation are now becoming a possibility because they can do them from their home. So location isn't as much of a factor. So we are seeing just a smidge of that, not enough that it's raising a red flag. Quite frankly, what we struggle with a little bit more in Square is a bit of a double-edged sword, where that really great internal mobility that I spoke about earlier, where talent is constantly moving around the organization, that is actually a little bit more problematic than people leaving altogether. That's just the Square experience.
I'd love to just marry that, because you started to touch on it in our next question, which is around this, hey, the pandemic has really infused this idea of work from home or work virtually, work remotely. And it's, what do you all think? I mean, is this really changing the face of, in your organizations as an example, or from what you're hearing, Jeff, with the employers you work with, what it means for the world of work, what it means for St. Louis? Talk to us about that.
I'll take a stab at that first.
Yeah.
I can at least speak for my own organization. Given the nature of this virus, we are doing whatever we can to accommodate people working from home right now. I mean, you got to understand a higher education institution is very high customer service, high touch. Our students, by far the majority of them, would rather be on campus. But right now, density is a concern to have a lot of employees on students on campus. We've had to adopt practices right now for a lot of our employee groups to work at home. But I think this will have an impact going down the road. I don't know if we need as many offices as we have right now after the pandemic. Teams like our institutional research and a lot of our IT folks could probably work from home going forward. I mean, I believe that COVID-19 will change how all of us do business, starting right here at higher education. But, you know, it'd be interesting to hear what Mark and Naomi are experiencing. Maybe they're already there and recruit from all over the world for their companies.
Good segue. So Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, so we obviously recruit from all over the world. We have people, well, all over the United States. We have people that from all backgrounds, because we're a federal agency, a national agency. So one of the cool things that our agency does is draws people into St. Louis because of that. But as far as the pandemic goes, it's definitely changed the game. We're a little bit different in our agency in terms of the other intelligence agencies. We obviously operate in a very secure, top secret environment, and therefore you can't really telework doing that. But we also have a good portion of our business. More of our business is unclassified and can be done outside of that. And so because of that, our agency really leaned forward on the second day that we knew this thing was going to happen, when the pandemic happened. We ordered what are called CAC readers. Here it is right here. I hope to cover my CAC up there, but it's a sort of military ID, DoD ID, and this is what we use to log in and authenticate. And so we ordered. Normally, there's maybe 300 people that do this from the outside of the agency, and we ordered 7,000 of those things in one day and got them before anybody else got them, because there was a run on them. And we went, the agency basically went from 300 to 9,000 teleworkers in about 2 weeks. And that was an amazing thing for the United States to see that, to observe that in the Department of Defense. So, we are forever changed. We're not going to have 9,000 people working from home from here forward, and there's sort of gradual recovery back into our buildings, but we are forever changed. We know now that what we can do and how important it is to give people that flexibility. But I'll say this: I think for all of us, it's important that we get back together. It's important that we work together. I'm an extrovert. It's been killing me. I play off of cues like smiles. Naomi's smiling right now, and that makes me feel good. So that's hard to do, over the phone and through these video conferences. So I think it is important that we get back together as humans, that we have this connection. But we know we can be much more flexible now, and moving forward, we'll never be the same.
Absolutely. Thank you. We are unfortunately at the end of our time, believe it or not. This went so fast, and I feel like we have so many more topics still to cover. But I know some of the topics we're hitting on are also being covered in other sessions throughout the conference. And so I hope everyone will plan to attend those sessions. And meanwhile, I want to thank everyone who did attend today's session. I hope you took away as much as I did. I know I learned a tremendous amount from our wonderful panelists. Thank you, Jeff, Mark, and Naomi. We really appreciate the time that you spent and the care and thoughtfulness by which you answered all of the questions that we had today. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Be well, be safe, and hopefully we'll see you around.